if you don't appreciate what you're doing and just stop and be like, I can achieve more. I know I can achieve more. And I've got this fire in my belly. It starts to become cheap. It starts to become, I don't know if there's a right word for it, but just cheap, I think is the right word. You just don't appreciate those big things in life and those achievements. So yeah, I would say that, that's a big part of it too, is that, when you do take a step back and look and think about your regrets and think about your successes, just understand, you're doing pretty good. And, and in the next 5 years, you want to be in another position where you look back 5 years and be like, oh, I can't believe I did that. That's always the goal, right?
Welcome to the show, and thank you for hitting the subscribe button. We've got a bunch of great shows this season, and Matt Rudig is here. Matt is the record-setting and paradigm-changing district manager from way back when at College Works, and he says that excellence is accomplishing something different and memorable as perceived by others. We're going to get into what does that mean. We're going to talk about channeling his competitive focuses into a productive focus through knowing your situation, knowing yourself, pushing, and using that chip on your shoulder if you've got one. He says that success in management is about how you make people feel. And we're going to talk about what type of person goes into management. Thank you for listening to the show, and welcome to the Edge of Excellence. Well, Matthew Rudig, actually, it's not long time no see, because I have a statue of you in my office, or one of those, you know what the statue is. It's got your face in my office, and there's a couple of
very effeminate photo that we chose for that statue too. I look really manly with a big old poofy hair, and it looks great.
That's not our fault, but I do have a statue of you in my office. So not long time no see, but welcome to the Edge of Excellence. I'm going to start the way I always start. What is your definition of excellence? And I guess it would include having a statue made of you because you made such a big impact on the company. But what is it besides that?
Yeah, no, well, good to see you. You got a beautiful face. You got to keep people with beautiful faces in your life.
And right as you said that, the camera went out of focus for some reason. Even with the nappy beard that my wife makes me have that I hate. I appreciate it.
I sometimes like to hop trains as well, and so you have to look the part. I think excellence is pretty subjective, right? I think that you look up the dictionary definition, which I did because I am a student of the language, and it's something that sticks out. And so I think that excellence is more or less defined as someone who sticks out, whether it's a great dad, or obviously we work together. There are just people that when they walk in the room, or when they accomplish something, or when they do something, you're like, wow, like that was different. That was memorable. And I think that was what excellence really boils down to, whether it's a personal or a professional achievement. Other people know and can feel it. It's more, I view excellence as more of a feeling of others, that they feel about you, not necessarily about the performance that you put on necessarily. So yeah, I think that excellence is when other people know that you are at the top of your food chain, or at the top of your game, or whatever you're doing.
So other people know or notice accomplishments that are different and measurable.
Yeah, because like there are a lot of I'm a big NFL guy, and like there are a lot of great quarterbacks in the NFL, but when you watch Tom Brady, when you watch Aaron Rodgers, they're playing the same game that everybody is. They're throwing the old pigskin around, they're banding it around, and I think that when you watch those two, there are a lot of other great quarterbacks, but there's a feeling like that you're watching something excellent, and so I don't think they're doing anything on any particular play that's excellent, but just their overall aura of what they're doing is excellent, and you feel that maybe when they even don't. So yeah, I think it's more about what other people perceive your achievements to be than what the actual achievement is.
So that's so the opposite of Zen and enlightenment, and what do we care what other people think? But people that are excellent, people that are doing excellent things usually are pretty humble. I think that people are humble naturally. And so, you go talk to someone that's crushing it. And, I've got this friend who, I think you met him before he came and spoke, and he had, CEO of Oakley and has all these big action brands now. And I was sitting with them in a van in Patagonia, Argentina. And I said, hey, you must just be so proud of yourself. I mean, you've crushed it. And he said, no, not really. Not really. I thought I'd be doing a lot better. And I was just blown away. Or another buddy of mine whose family has a basketball team. And I'm sitting there and I say, hey, what are you doing, dude? Do you need more? And he's just doing deals and learning a new career, learning a new industry. And his family's all involved. And his sister went to some MBA program. We'll just say her name's Lisa because it is. Say, Lisa, what are you doing? Can't you just rest on your laurels? You're making me tired. They don't see themselves as excellent. It's like the horizon that you never get there. So I really, actually, the last podcast, here's a little secret for the audience. We don't do this live. So this recording is happening right after the second episode of the season came out. And you're probably going to be the 20th episode of the season. And I was listening to the podcast yesterday or 2 days ago. They come out on Tuesdays, and it was my favorite podcast. And during the podcast, I said, that's my favorite definition of excellence. And I guess we're getting better and better and better every time, because I haven't heard anybody else say it's the feeling of others. It's the perceptions of others. Other people know or notice accomplishments that are different and meaningful.
Oh, yes.
And, Tom Brady, everybody knows he's probably the greatest of all time. I wonder if he thinks he's excellent. I bet he doesn't, because there's that natural humility that you can always do better. Maybe excellence is thinking, personally, I can always do better. But other people are sitting there going, oh, my God, look at what you've done with your career. Look at what you're doing with your career. Look what you've done with your family. Look what you've done with your community. And, that humility kind of makes that maybe part of what the definition should be.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that maybe if you dive a little bit deeper into the meta, you look at what makes excellent people excellent, and it's their self-perception does not match the perception of others. And I think that's a big part of it. Like if I'm sitting in Argentina, I'm thinking, wow, this is nice. I've done well for myself, but someone who maybe step or two above me, sitting there and they're not happy with where they're at, that's that perception gap that I think a lot of excellent people have. It's like resting on your laurels. That's the nice one, a little 50s or 60s saying there, but no, I think that's the self-perception of yourself. And I think you said it really really well, that's why they're so humble, is because it's like, Tom Brady, he's got 7 rings on his hand, but he feels like he hasn't done shit. Like he doesn't have 8. And everybody else is like, well, Tom, you got 7 rings on your hand. He's like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. So I think that's a pretty close definition of it.
Wow. The perception gap. Yeah. I a lot of the guests talk about how you're kind of the sum of your 5 closest friends. I like to go spend time. If you're listening in your car at 1.5 speed, take a look at your friends. Are they dragging you down or dragging you up? I like to sit there and just be amazed. And, this one guy, I was friends with his sister, and I think you met his sister too. I think she came and spoke to the company when you were there. We did a panel discussion with her.
You're talking about the Kings, right?
Yeah. So Lisa and I are really good friends. Like, we're best friends. And her brother's like, who's this dude? Why is he best friends with my sister? And so I could tell he was reaching out. So I had this kind of volunteer job where we were membership chair of our little cult, our business cult that we belong to. And we got to decide who came in. And I like to pick other people to do it with. So I picked him and said, hey, why don't you come do this with me? And I'm spending all this time with him for 2 years. And it's just so inspirational, because I'm sitting there thinking, man, if I was as successful as he is, and his family's super successful, his mother, super successful, highly respected, his father, super successful, highly respected. They build this business. The kids take over the business. The kids sell the business. They end up with this basketball team, and they're out there doing more and more. And I'm sitting there, I can't contemplate what it would be like if I was in that situation, but I watch and I say, God, I hope I would be crushing it, challenging, growing, learning. But that's very interesting. The perception of others does matter. in excellence. Well, you've had a life of excellence, and like I mentioned in the beginning, we've got 2 statues of you in our office from way back when you used to work with us. And I remember you moving. You became a father. You moved. You gave up your business because you wanted to be an excellent dad. And I knew right then, and everybody around you knew right then, it's not stopping. You're going to crush it. So let's go way back to high school. You didn't just end up, waking up one day and being the founder of a company. You had to go through some experiences before you were the founder of Platinum Decking. And we can find Matt Rudig at platinumdecking.com. Is that where we find you?
That's right. You can find platinumdecking.com. You can find our beautiful decks, as well as some of our excellent salespeople. And I'm one of the founders, not one of the owners. So you can find our owners there as well. But yes, correct.
But you're
platinumdecking.com.
You're director of sales and operations. You can find Matt on LinkedIn. Just look up Matt Rudig. There's a lot of Matt Stewarts. There's not a lot of Matt Rudigs, and there's only one real Matt Rudig. But before you are the famous Matt Rudig that we know and love, what was life like? What were you doing in high school? What was going on? I know you were working as a landscaper at some water park, but what were you doing?
Well, in high school, I came from a lower middle class background. You don't know what class you are when you're growing up, so you look back and you realize, oh man, humble beginnings.
I knew what class I was, and my mom hates it because I mentioned it once in a while. Yeah, I didn't have any money growing up. My mom's like, we did not have any money. I'm like, Mom, we didn't have a whole lot of money, but we were wealthy in other things. So you grew up in a same background as me. Start off lower middle class. Your parents work their asses off. They end up upper middle class by the time they're done and you're out. And then you look back and you try to, the American dream, grow from there. So you're lower middle class. You're growing up. What's going on?
I was a competitive guy. My parents. My whole family is not what you would consider in gym circles to be in shape. So we were not a competitive family. Very much they were book smart, liked reading, liked the language. My parents got me a ton of books. I was always into English literature and 3-syllable, 4-syllable words, and figuring out how to confuse my friends just by speaking the same words but with different meaning. And I played basketball. And there was one time in 5th grade, I was like crying. I was so mad that we lost. And that's when I realized that I was a competitive guy. And, you can use that to your advantage, or you can be a hothead who just punches walls and gets pissed about video games. And so I channeled that into being a great basketball player and football player. I led my high school team in points, rebounding. I don't know about assists, but all the different stat categories. I took little town of Stock Prairie State in basketball. That's when I really realized that, if you have drive and competitive spirit and the will, then, it doesn't matter if you're, 6'1" and white playing against a bunch of, 6'5" guys from Milwaukee. You can make it work. And so, that was a little bit about my background. And then, I got hired. Well, actually, first job I had, I was a door-to-door salesman. I sold doors.
How old?
I was 17. I sold doors, so it didn't go well. And then I got a landscaping job. So that was fun. If you've ever been to Noah's Ark Water Park, landscaping is a relatively loose term there. But basically, I was a big football guy, right? So there was this hill. Have you ever been to Noah's Ark Water Park, which I'm sure our audience just loves? And it was the Anaconda ride. And there's a super steep hill. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to tie a rope to the lawnmower and lower it down and then pull it back up. And you had to wear like football cleats. So that was an interesting experience.
Safe.
It was, and the guys who I was working with, there was a bunch of exchange guys. So like a Turkish guy named Mehmet. Only words he knew was good morning. Super nice guy. He was just so jacked about the mornings. And so it was a good experience. Good. I think everyone should have a physical labor job if they can do it, because it does humble you. You talk about driving it. It makes you realize, like, oh my God, like I don't want to do this. I should probably go get an education and read some thick books. After that, I did a little internship called College Works and did pretty well. So,
Okay, so you're in high school, and just a couple. We gotta do a couple side notes. You mentioned that everybody's out there. There's all these quarterbacks. You know, I'm not a sports person, but I do like to watch Monday Night Football. And they're all the quarterbacks, and they're playing the same thing. And Tom Brady's excellent. They're all throwing the pigskin, except for the quarterback of the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, he didn't have a very good showing, did he?
That quarterback does not count as a pro quarterback. And I don't know what his name is, but I watched him in the playoffs. First of all, their punt receive team and their kickoff receive team never made it past the 12-yard line. One point in time, they're on the 3-yard line, and he's about to get sacked for a safety, and instead he throws an interception. I mean, I've never seen anything worse than that. So shout out to the Cardinal ownership. Get rid of your quarterback. He's horrible.
Well, it's tough because his name's Kyler Murray, right? He's an incredible athlete. He was drafted by the A's and chose football, but he's like 5'3", like 5'4". I mean these linemen that are blocking in front of him are like 6'4", 6'5". So it's almost like hiring a toddler to paint the eaves of your house. It's like, well, this guy could be a really good painter. This toddler could be a very good painter, but I don't know if she's going to be able to reach those things. So I don't know. He's a great talent, but you can't. You can't teach height, so and it was a tough game for him.
Well, he made it pretty far in life at that height in that profession. So he must be pretty good at what he does, must practice a lot, must try pretty hard, but he sucked. Second thing to the lawnmower. When I was a kid, I used to go to England in the summers because I was a bad kid and my grandparents would take me there.
Is that what they do with bad kids? They send them to England?
I don't know if you know this, but I thought it was a reward all my life. And then when I turned 40, I was sitting at the dinner table talking about, my kid who's an angel. He's absolute angel. He's just the greatest kid. But when he was young, boys are tough. And I said to my parents, was I as tough as Jake? And my dad stopped, looked at my mom, looked back at me and said, we knew this day would come. And then they walked me through my life from their perception, which was the opposite of my perception. So I thought, hey, my grandparents were really close, going to England to see my grandparents. Yay, everybody loves me. No, in actual fact, my grandparents were rescuing me because they thought my parents would end up killing me and be in jail. So they were protecting my little brother from having jailed parents and getting me out. But I went to this place called Windsor Castle where, you see it on the news, and they had the moat around it. And they had these things called fly mowers. And they were like hovercraft lawnmowers, and they tied a rope to them, just like you said. They dropped them down the hill, but they could swing them back and forth because they were hovercraft lawnmowers to mow the lawn. And I've never forgotten. I was probably 11 when I saw it. I thought it was so cool. I don't know why in the greatest country in the history of the world, we didn't have fly mowers when you were younger doing that job, because that would have made your job a lot easier. But we digress. So we'll get back to it. You're in high school. You're focused on learning and growing, right? You said you got this competitiveness that you're channeling, and somebody listening right now is looking for a way to channel it. So you start off by channeling it into a sports. You get a little older, probably want to get a little bit of money. Then you channel it into business. You did the college works thing in college. So let's just talk about college real quick. Where'd you go to college?
UW-Whitewater, home of the Warhawks.
Home of the Warhawks.
Lovely.
So
Lovely
you're
place.
in Whitewater, which Whitewater, by the way, shout out to University of Wisconsin, Whitewater. That was the greatest recruiting school in the history of our company. Small school.
Incredible. Yeah. I mean, it was just totally made up of just like farm kids who wanted to, be a better than their parents. It was such a white collar mentality, blue collar school. It couldn't be more tailor made for the College Works programs, right?
Yeah. So we need people that work hard. The world needs people that work hard. So you go to a school where people are channeling their competitiveness into work, where people are coming up and they've had jobs. They've been channeling their competitive drive into probably sports. They've been channeling almost everyone into different jobs, trying to kick butt in their jobs. And then, we had that internship. So we'd get a few people, but they always just crushed it at Whitewater because they had those building blocks. So you're at Whitewater and, you started working with College Works at what age?
19. Freshman year. Yeah.
Freshman year, which I used to say, don't hire any freshmen. But then maybe it was you, but all of a sudden, everybody that wins the awards every year is a freshman. So you won all the awards. You set all the records. By the way, no one makes a statue of you and puts it in their office because you're average. They only do it, not even if you're excellent. They do it if you're the most excellent of all time. So you were the most excellent of all time district manager, and then you did it again. And then after school, you went off and started a company with us. Then you had your daughter and moved back to, I thought you moved back to the Chicagoland area.
Yeah, land of Lincoln. Yeah, it's a real thrill. Yep.
So you you moved back to the Chicagoland area. So what was going on with you in college to where you decided, College Works internship doesn't exist except for in like 12 states in the Midwest. So if you're on the East Coast or West Coast, sorry, you got to find something else. So what were you looking for? How did you identify that internship? What can you tell our listener listening in the car right now at 1.5 speed? A system or a way to find something that's going to, back to your channeling of your competitive drive, channeling of your effort into the most productive focus internship wise.
Yeah, I would say, it's funny. I don't know if I had a goal of a certain mindset or vision of what I wanted out of an internship. I know that I was very realistic with myself, and I had friends who had dads who were amazing. Like my dad, he's a pretty average guy. I love my dad. He's he's an average fella, and so I knew that my friends had these dads who owned insurance companies, and they were on boats in the middle of Lake Wisconsin, and all these bells and whistles. And so I knew that I was not going to get by with the networks that I had. And I'd always been told growing up, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And as you get older, you realize just how true that statement is. And so what I was really looking for is a way to channel my competitive spirit. Because I didn't have basketball at that point. I was not playing collegiately. And I think the other big thing was just meeting new people that were better than I was. The old phrase, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. I took that to heart early on. And so I think College Works was a great fit for me because it was so individualized and so competitive. And so it really was tailored towards what what my motivations were. And again, it was also a internship where I was surrounded by people, and I learned very quickly that, it was in UW-Madison and all these nice state schools where the kids were, from frankly well off or better positions that I did. And I was like, wow, this is a great opportunity to network and meet people who are smarter or more well off than I am, and learn from them and learn from their families. And so, yeah, that's the big thing is I don't want to say that, find something that channels your inner competitiveness, because you might not be competitive. You might be very passive, but you have other strengths that bring out the best in you. You've got to find something that brings out the best in what you're best at. And I think that ties into the old excellence thing, is that the best people I work with so many freaking good people. I know you have Brie Kaufman on your podcast. I work with so many people. I think that she's probably one of the most talented people, maybe the most talented people I've ever worked with. And she's very singular about figuring out what she does well, and then doing the things that bring out those characteristics. And so, yeah, that's the biggest thing, is that don't find an internship that you think is good because other people tell you it is. You got to figure out, okay, what am I good at? What brings out my best performance? And does this internship help me to being out my best performance? And again, I think just overall, everyone should be looking for an internship where you expand your network, and you're again not the smartest person in the room pretty much the entire internship. And if you do those two things, you're going to probably find a good fit.
So you have a system there. One, know what you need. Know your situation. If you're listening right now and you're driving, don't write this down. But if you're not driving, step one, know your situation. You needed more knowledge, so you went to college. You needed more knowledge and experience, so you knew you needed to get an internship. You wanted a better network, so know your situation. What do you do well? Where do you need to improve? What do you need? Two, know who you are. You knew you had to channel your competitive spirit. If you didn't, you knew something was going to go wrong, so you found a productive an outlet because you knew you needed to. And then three, push yourself. Now you have a fourth one, which I love. use the chip on your shoulder. Use the chip on. So everybody else has more money. They've got a bigger boat. I want that. These guys suck. They're all spoiled. Mine, by the way, and shout out to Ken Johns of Ken Johns Lincoln Mercury in Albuquerque, New Mexico, for pissing me off so much as a 15 and 16-year-old and screwing with me so much as a 15 and 16-year-old that it actually drove me. And if I went to a psychologist right now, they'd say, let it go. I'm not letting it go. I hated that guy then. I hate that guy now. One of my podcasts, I wasn't supposed to say this, but I had a dream of flying around in a private plane and crapping and flushing the toilet over and over and over on his house, which one day I will do. Channel that, right? So I leave Albuquerque, New Mexico, where this asshole made my life miserable for no reason. He made a mistake. He misunderstood something. He blamed me for something I didn't do, but he had the power and I didn't. And I decided I wanted to have the power too. Now, it was a chip on my shoulder and I was young and dumb and wanted to use it in the wrong way. And then later in life, I realized what real power is. You're doing favors for people. You're taking care of people. You're not screwing with some 15-year-old's life while you're 45-year-old because you're some punk living in Albuquerque trying to be the king of the molehill. Not saying that Albuquerque is a molehill, but I did move out of there at 19 years old as a birthday present to myself. But I use that chip and I love this. I get to do whatever I want because it's my podcast, right? So I could say whatever. I'm just wondering if I could be sued for that. Can I be sued for saying I feel like Ken Johns is an asshole? I don't think so. But everybody listening, someone in the car has some time that they felt inferior or something that pissed them off, or some chip on their shoulder, or something they're driving for. You know, I go to these speakers that talk about raising non-entitled kids, and they speak to all the wealthy people about non-entitled kids. Well, you and I didn't have that problem. You have that problem when you have too much money. So channel that chip, and then as you grow older and wiser, you realize, probably through a lot of counseling, which I had to go through, you realize that it's not about vengeance. It's not about proving your ego. You realize you finally get some power and you get whatever you're looking for. And then you go, okay, I can use this better. So
vengeance is a nice thing though. You know, you don't want to let that type of stuff go. I mean, you ever seen Taken? I mean, vengeance is it's a big thing. So, whatever motivates you, just use it wisely.
They say a recession is a horrible thing to waste. Everything bad can be used good, and every anger emotion is just masking some emotion. So when you figure out that you shouldn't really be angry, that it should be something else, then you can channel it. But yet again, we digress. So you go to college, you do the college works gig, you kick all sorts of butt. You decide that family first, good on you, family first. And you come back and everybody knew who you were. Everybody knew how awesome you were. Everybody knew that you're the person they want to work with. So you go into this business with these other two dudes, Kyle and Tom, shout out to Kyle and Tom. And you start this platinum decking, which is just growing and growing and growing. And in that company, you function as the director of operations, and you're the head of sales too, right?
Yep, correct.
So people don't know what that means. So what does it mean to be a director of operations? What do you do as a director of operations? What skills do you need? What do you do in the daily life of director of operations?
So, I mean, I started the company with Tom and Kyle, and they were obviously, well, maybe not obviously to our audience because they're maybe not in the intimate relationship stage with Tom and Kyle quite yet. But I started the company, and these guys were essentially funding it. And for the first year, I was doing everything. I went door to door as far as starting our sales. I managed all of our production crews, made orders, made permits. I mean, everything under the sun. They were taking care of their thing over here, and I was starting this thing over here. And so, that was probably the most challenging of the years because I was doing literally everything and crying to myself at night. Oh my God, this is so hard. Not really hard, but overall, we made it through there, and then we got a sales team under us and hired a couple all-stars, Bree and Christina, and they did an excellent job of expanding our sales. And so I got obviously into my sweet spot, which is, the management of a salesperson and inspiring someone to achieve higher. And I believe that I'm a very good management in that sense that I don't micro. and I let them figure out the small details and make sure I drive big picture as much as possible. So got into my sweet spot once we had a sales crew, and now I basically kind of do it all. I don't deal with maybe the nitty gritty of the day to day like I did in year one, but as director of sales and operations, I manage our sales team. I already it's 12:50. I've talked to each one of our salespeople twice today. We obviously have operations. So I was out at a job site, getting it ready, making sure the client knew what everything was going on. The production manager knew everything that was going on. So yeah, I mean, it's more of a leadership. I mean, if you want to call it leader of Platinum Decking or one of the leaders of Platinum Decking, it's just a day-to-day. How can I be a good leader? How can I motivate all these different types of people to come together and make an excellent product for our clients? So that's a little bit of what I do. Yeah.
So you're 25 years old or 23 years old. You're driving through Texas right now. Listen to this because you're trying to figure out what to do. And a director of sales, as you define it, first of all, you have to have strong relationship skills. So if you haven't done the DISC test, you haven't listened to the DISC episode, go do it. You can go on to the collegeworks.com/podcast and we can send you the white paper on DISC. You need to, as a director of sales, kind of be in the influencer area, probably in the driver area, and the supporter or steady area works too, because you're focused on inspiring. You are doing some management. You are tracking. You say you don't do micromanagement, but you know what the goals are. You're measuring everything. So that's the kind of compliance, conscientious to see side. You don't like to do it very much because that's not your personality. Your personality is the influencer, the I, inspire. Your personality is the driver. You're driving the vision. You're driving the big picture. You're maintaining relationships. There's probably a lot of training of people if you're director of sales. So you don't get to be director of sales unless you've done sales, because you need to know how to train it. So that's right. I'm going to bifurcate your job. So that's the director of sales. Then you're also talking about the director of operations. And if you're listening right now, operations is what the company does. So if you're in the construction field, that's making sure the product gets to where it needs to be. The people are there to put the product together. You've got the quality control. So you're into your communication skills, also influencer, also supporter. You're making sure people are hitting budgets, also driver, also influencer. Your quality control, communications, again, relationships. You're leading, you're motivating. Another influencer trait. So a lot of times people will be director of operations and finance. That's the person that's the C. And that gets to your startup point. If you're in a startup, for those of you listening, you want to get into a business, you start off getting dirty. You do it all. And what Matt did, he didn't go into the accounting side. That's not who he is. He went into the sales and operations side. The accounting side's for someone else because you get dirty, you do it all. And then later on, you specialize in what you're best at and hire others. And you hear Matt saying, I'm best at management. And, I talk about the statue, College Works, a big number was 500 grand. And the biggest number ever, I think, was 800 grand. And then out of the blue, Matt does $1 million. And then he does it again, just to make sure we didn't think it was a fluke. Talk back to your definition of excellence, accomplishment that's different and memorable. You get a statue. I remember it because there's a statue in my office of it. Other people
is it naked? Because I posed naked for a guy and I didn't hear anything back.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Thank God. I know you know that. You have been incredibly funny on the show, and I really appreciate the humor. And I can't wait to listen to this. I listen to these things on Tuesday. I giggle and giggle and giggle the whole time.
I was listening to the other podcast, and there isn't a lot of humor. I was like, oh man, I don't want to come on here and just talk about like empty fucking platitudes and all that shit. Like I just want to, man, put a smile on your face, put some, some facts in your head, that type of shit. So I'm glad you said that.
Yes, well, I appreciate the foul language, and I appreciate the alluding to nakedness. No, you were not naked, but you did memorable things. You did
call that guy.
You did do things that people notice. And so you move into this director of operations, director of sales job. What is the best part of it? If you look, you've been in sales, you've been in, I also got to mention this, by the way, you talked about how you had this horrible job doing landscaping. If you're listening, You have to have horrible jobs. You don't get the CEO position, the founder position. You go out and work hard to learn to work hard. That's the labor. You go out and knock on doors and sell doors or work in a restaurant to learn the communication. I love that you were selling door-to-door doors.
Well, what's funny too is that I was like, oh, this isn't working out. I'm knocking on these doors. Obviously, these folks have a door, and then I did door to door again, and I chose wrong again. I sold brick and mortar, and I was like, oh God, just behind the times, really, is what I was. So,
and then you sold paint jobs door to door, and I hate door to door. I hate it. Everybody hates it. But man, that's where you prove your gumption. Man, you get some good communication skills, waiting tables, bussing tables, having to deal with always being happy, even if you're not, always having a smile on your face, even if you're not, making the customer feel good, even if you don't feel good. Those are the building blocks that get you to the point where you can get an awesome internship. The internship gets you an awesome job. Maybe the job's not right for you, but if you keep, as you say, doing things that are memorable that people notice, in your case and many other people's cases, they're waiting, they're watching, they're like sharks waiting. When is Matt Rudig going to be available? Oh, he's available. Boom, let's start a company with him.
Right. Yeah, I know. I mean, get back to your initial point of what, I like the best about the job. It's got to be, I really want to stay away from cliches, but I think that the people is the best part of my job. And I think that building those relationships.
Yeah, you stole all the people from me.
Easy there, hold on.
And some of them are my favorites. I'm pretty much I have a lot of favorites. But you got a lot of you don't have any of my not favorites.
Well, you don't want to, bring in somebody that fucking sucks. But no, I mean, like it is cool because one of my favorite things is developing people. And the reason why I love doing that is because I know how much I was, you had, I think, Maniage on a podcast, who was Matt Maniage, who was my DM when I was an intern. And I just remember how he made me feel and how I felt after he had developed me in X, Y, or Z. And so that's why I love what I do. I could, I was having some self-inflection because I'm 29 now, and you get to 30 and you're like, well, this thing's halfway done. What are we doing here? And so I was like, well, when you're in sales, you can make more money in a lot of cases than being in management. I think anybody who's in management or sales management knows that, if you're a top salesman at a company, you're making a lot more than a lot of the people who are above you. And so I kind of have that self-inflection point where I was like, well, maybe I should, I've got a house now, I've got a daughter, I got some hobbies, I want to buy a horse. Maybe I should do some sales. But at the end of the day, selling paint jobs or deck jobs or doors or brick and mortar, it just doesn't make you very happy. Or at least it doesn't make me very happy.
Makes some people happy.
Makes some people happy, right? But like for me personally, I know what drives me is building a relationship and building a close connection with someone, and them being like, "Holy cow! Like I accomplished all my goals, and I can't thank you enough." And you made me realize that personally I needed to do this, and professionally it rubbed off, and so that's why I love the most about this job, and about whether you want to be a director of sales, of director of management, director of anything. If you're in a leadership role, you have to, I think, number one, relish that you're going to build people, you're going to build relationships, you're going to take on that dad or that mom role. And so, yeah, I would say that, that's probably the most rewarding part of the job for sure.
Yeah. And I wrote that down. Success in management, a lot of it is how you make people feel.
Yeah. 100%.
How you 100%. You mentioned inspire, but you also have to care, right? You're a caring person. If you're not a caring person, management's not the best place. Now, there are people, and I mention this once in a while, that are just cracking the whip and crushing people. And, the female role on Lone Star, just the hard charging, beat everybody up, and they succeed. And, I don't have anything against that, but I also don't have a lot of friends like that. They're out there. I choose to not make them my friends because I have friends that have the same values. And most people, the majority of successful people, are concerned about how they make people feel. If you're the salesperson, you just want to be the salesperson. And I had somebody on the podcast, they're so excited, it may have been Brianna, so excited about how their customers feel and the relationship with the customer and making that customer. You and I talked, when we were in the DM role, which there's a DM, district manager exists in every company. But for us at CollegeWorks, it was the sparkle in their eyes. You see someone that just had no idea what they had in them, and all of a sudden their eyes just start to sparkle and they figure it out. That kept me coming back for more. Not the money, definitely not the hours, not the trip to Cabo or Cancun. I now hate going to those places, but I go down there because I see the sparkle. And I was told, I got to go down to Mexico again. I hate this. And then I go down there and it's like, oh my God, I'm so glad I'm down here. These people are so inspirational. How you and the people that work with you make you feel. Are you surprised by where you are in life at such an early age?
I don't know. When you get to 30, I think a lot of people, when they get to 30, they have the same moment that I did, where they're like, okay, like where are we at on this lovely road of life? And it's tough because I for the longest time in my 20s, I felt like I was just, oh, Matt, you made the wrong mistake here and you said something stupid here. And then all of a sudden this whole thing blows up. And yet now I own my own house and I have an amazing career and I love the people that I work with. And I don't hate my life so much that I can't see the humor in things, which is a big plus. And so I look at it and it's tough. If you were to tell me when I was 20 that I have a house and a beautiful daughter, and she has an expensive hobby like riding fucking horses, and everything is simpatico with your career, I'd be like, yeah, absolutely, I'll take that. I'd like to be a season ticket holder for the Packers, but you can't have it all. And I think that that's an important thing, is that you always want to overachieve. And going back to our first part, like if you want to be excellent, you should never be happy with where you're at. And the same token, you should appreciate where you're at, because I can guarantee you that 5 years ago, you probably would have been like, no way I could be there, or even 3 years ago or 2 years ago. So there is that appreciation that if you don't, as you said before, sit on your laurels a little bit. Life is, the old man tells the young man, the most important lesson you can know is that life goes fast, and the young man never understands it. And it's the old man's best understanding of anything. And you got to remember that, like, if you don't appreciate what you're doing and just stop and be like, I can achieve more. I know I can achieve more. And I've got this fire in my belly. It starts to become cheap. It starts to become, very, very, I don't know if there's a right word for it, but just cheap, I think, is the right word. You just don't appreciate those big things in life and those achievements. So yeah, I would say that, that's a big part of it too, is that, when you do take a step back and look and think about your regrets and think about your successes, just understand, you're doing pretty good. And, and in the next 5 years, you want to be in another position where you look back 5 years and be like, oh, I can't believe I did that. That's always the goal, right?
Well, the path never changes. You're constantly reevaluating, back to your 1, 2, 3, 4 model, constantly reevaluating your situation, know what you need, constantly knowing who you are, constantly pushing yourself. And at 29, you're more successful than most 49-year-olds. You're probably more successful than 99% of 49-year-olds. At 29, you got the big title, you got the fast-growing business, you got kind of the power role and the opportunity, I'll say, to influence others. But yeah, you're not resting on your laurels. As you said, there's that humility in your definition of excellence, that, the feeling of others. I think you're crushing it, but you're sitting there going, I got to be crushing it more.
I was sitting in the sauna with a bunch of 49-year-old guys, and they're just talking about all the shit that they're doing. So I was like, oh man, I need to meet more 49-year-olds,
Yeah. Well, yeah. Or 50. Remember, I'm 50. And you said, never be happy. I'm going to correct you. Always be happy. Go read the Dalai Lama Art of Happiness. Read the Vedanta books. The Fall of the Human Intellect. 2 great books to read. Happiness is part of the goal. Never be satisfied. Never be satisfied. So think back. My favorite question, last question, then I'll let you get back to it. What sacrifices did you make in your early years that you'll never regret?
I there's a lot of, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people around the world making a lot of sacrifices. I mean, Jesus of Nazareth probably had the biggest one if you think about it. But I would probably say that for me, the one thing I'll never regret is moving back to Illinois to be with my daughter.
That's what I was hoping you'd say.
Yeah, it's just something like being a dad is just so, like, again, I got statues in an office, and some guy's got obviously a naked statue of myself. It's somewhere, but there's nothing like, I love professional success. Like it's intoxicating. It feels good. It fuels my competitive emotion. But when I come home, or when I pick up my daughter from school and she smiles and she's like, "Dad," and I was just like, there's parents know that there's just nothing that even comes close to it. And spending a day with my daughter is just so much better than getting blacked out in Cancun and hey, I drank too. Oh, we got sober. It's like I say, I'm drinking. It's the same thing over and over again. And so, yeah, moving back to be with my daughter. What's funny is that when I was 5, I told my parents I would never live in Illinois. And they're like, "Why?" I was like, "Because the Bears suck." I'm a big Packers fan. It's kind of a religion up in Wisconsin. And yet I basically, I want to say gave up everything, because it's a little bit dramatic, but I basically stopped everything in my life and moved to the worst fucking state in the 50 states, in my opinion. Maine is so much better. I mean, even Alaska, it's like, Christ, you can fish. But it's, I moved back here because my daughter is that important to me, and family is the most fulfilling thing in the world. And I think that maybe I'm going off on a tangent here, but I think a lot of people who struggle with, I see a lot of like 20 somethings, mid 20s, late 20s, that they're like, I'm so sad. Like, why am I so sad? First thing I say is turn off social media, because it's like the fucking worst thing in the world. The second thing I would say is like, maybe try to start a family. Because for me, I know this, like I in my early 20s and mid 20s, I was struggling to find meaning. I'd been kind of beaten up by life a little bit. I had taken a few haymakers, and I was just like, man, this is not a very good deal. And then, I had my daughter, and I was like, this is like the coolest thing in the world. Like I am literally her shining and guiding light, and just the unconditional love. You just, you're reminded of, one thing that kids do is they remind you of like, wow, I had an imagination back then. Like I was super fucking happy. And so, yeah, I think that'll never be a regret. I wish I could change a little bit about my location and stuff like that, but like to come back and spend my life with my daughter, that's something that I'll always be proud of myself for. That's for sure.
You have two things. You get to relive your childhood through your kids. They don't know you're doing it, but you're back on the slides again. You're swimming in the pool. Everything's great. They're wearing a cape to the grocery store. They don't care what anybody thinks. It's just so refreshing. But this guy, Warren Rusted, once said, no success at work makes up for failure in the home.
Oh, for sure. That's a great one. That's a great one. Yeah. I mean, again, like, I'm not saying that it's easy to start a family or to have a kid or whatever, but like, again, there's something about the human condition, I believe, that if you don't have a dog is so much different than a child. Like a dog doesn't, play with dolls and ask you to play, or like you said, go down the slide and go in the pool with you and say funny things and wear mixed match shoes. And there's just something about having a kid that puts life back into perspective, that no matter what's happening, like you can still be happy. Things are pretty good. So yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, I went to lunch yesterday with the Sherwin-Williams guys, and I'm parked there having a conference call, and I look and I see my son, and I'm in a whole different city. Like our office is 30 minutes from my house. And I live in Southern California. There's like 13 cities around. I see my son with his buddies walking towards the car. They just happen to have gone to the same place for lunch, and they walk up and they're like, "Hey, do you want to come eat with us?" I keep talking about it. It was like yesterday. It's like the highlight of my day. It's just so awesome. I will say that waiting until you have the right partner, planning it out is a really good way. So Matt is not endorsing just going out there and having a family or getting a dog, but
no. Go have as much sex as possible. And hopefully something pops out, at some point, right? No, that's what I'm endorsing. Okay.
Well, and on that note, we'll say it again: no success at work no success eclipses failure at the home. And Matt Rudig decided to give up a business he started, walk away, because he knew that. I've always been proud to know you, Matt Rudig. You're always a leader. Just the memory of you as a leader in our company. Thank you so much for coming on the show.